Richard Jenkins stars as Eric Blake in The Humans and as Ezra Grindle in Nightmare Alley. I'm David Buchanan with Gold Derby. Richard, it's a pleasure to talk with you today. I wanted to start by talking about both roles because the films are so different, obviously, but your characters in both are kind of grappling with some sense of grief and trauma and guilt. So I was wondering, how did you kind of see the two roles in relation to one another, and did one help you, kind of tap into the other in any way?
No, they're kind of polar opposites, but they're both people. I mean, that's where you start. You start with the fact that they're people, but what kind of people they are is a wholly different thing. But one, it fears in The Humans. I just felt that that there's this deep fear that he's going to lose his family, and it's his fault. And I think that's a terrifying realization. And for Grindle in Nightmare Alley, he spent his life, he's a very wealthy man, he spent his life trying to connect with a dead lover that he was in college with, the love of his life. He's built gardens to her, these beautiful gardens he's built for her. And he wants to connect with her. He wants to see her again. What he really wants is he wants her to tell him it's all right, it's okay. And so, they're two totally different guys, but, both have tons of fear and tons of desire, so I guess that would be similar, but.
Yeah, and I want to start with The Humans, which is such a really endearing and unique family drama, but it also has such an interesting psychological undercurrent to it. I was wondering, what was it about the unique tone of the film, written by Stephen Karam, adapting his play, that really attracted you to the role? And what was it about the character that's kind of so enigmatic to the audience that you found really intriguing?
Well, the writing, I mean, that's the first thing when you read scripts, you read so many of them. And when the writing is really brilliant, like The Humans was, that goes a long way. I mean, that's really what you're dealing with, the text, because all the clues, everything that you need to make this person a human being is in the text, is in the script. What you say, what you do, what people say about you, it's all there. I mean, they're your clues, and there were just a million of them in here. There's a lot unsaid, and there's a lot which I love. I mean, I love. There's this, I never think it's the actor's job to tell the story. That's the script's job. The actor's there just to try to live the character's life on screen, and hopefully that will tell the story in a way that's really beautiful and alive, as opposed to forcing a viewpoint down somebody's throat. Here, this is what I am, and you have to believe this. So I love that about it. I just thought it was so it just left so much undecided that I could deal with, and I love. I mean, things like, is he really going up there to check the score of the game? What's he thinking about when he's looking out the window? Why does he leave the room here? Stephen never answers those questions. He never, tells the audience what's going on. But after a while, something awful is going on in this guy's head. And so that's, I guess that's a long answer way of saying I flipped when I read it.
Yeah, no, that's incredibly insightful on what is really, as I said earlier, a very kind of interesting psychological exploration of family. I wanted to ask you too about the unique process of shooting the film. How much was it helpful to explore that bi-level apartment set? And also wanted to ask you about Stephen Karam's unique way of shooting the film, because it is set in this kind of claustrophobic apartment, but the camera is in unexpected places. It's down hallways, through doors. So was it liberating to not always know where the camera was when you were playing these scenes?
It's interesting because it was liberating, because I the first couple of days I said, where's the camera? Where? And then I couldn't find it half the time. But then I stopped. We all did. We just stopped worrying about the camera, and which is what you should always do anyway. And we just started to be there in this room, in this apartment, in this world. And the camera saw what the camera saw, and we left that up to Stephen to make that decision. We just went on with our lives, and it was really very liberating, and it helped us become a family.
Yeah, that's precisely what I wanted to ask you about next. I think you've said elsewhere that you had a very short rehearsal period for the film. But what's so remarkable about it and what makes it work so well is the ensemble has such a terrific family dynamic, and it feels so lived in. So just wanted to ask you, what was it like to establish that kind of family dynamic in such a short period of time? And also, working opposite actors like Jane Howdy-Shell and everybody else in this incredible ensemble.
Well, Jane played a huge part in that. Jane, who had done this, won the Tony for it, and she's brilliant. I mean, she's incredible, and she'd done it 600 times. So here's this new group of people coming in to be her new family, and we just felt really comfortable with her. We felt accepted by Jane immediately, and that, I think, that went a long way to making this family relationship happen. And luck is the other factor. We're just lucky that we liked each other. I mean, we all like each other. We still have a group text that we hear from each other once a week or something like that. If something happens, then everybody finds out about it. It's the first time that's ever happened in a movie for me, and it's amazing. But and it also starts at the top. What the atmosphere is on a set begins with the director, and Stephen is who he is. I mean, he's a mensch. I mean, he's a brilliant man, but he's a caring, interested man. And I think we all felt comfortable in the room because of Stephen.
Yeah, before we move on to Nightmare Alley, I want to ask you about the final sequence of the film, which is such a culmination and an emotional climax for your character in particular. So if you haven't watched The Humans yet, pause this interview, go watch the film now, and come back and listen to this answer about, that kind of really intense and moving emotional moment for your character. What was it like with Stephen to kind of choreograph physically how that would play out in the space, and also for you just kind of navigating that incredible emotional journey in those final few minutes?
Well, Stephen knew what he wanted, but I think we did mess around with it a little bit. But for me, it's the culmination of the night. It's the fear of coming to Thanksgiving with this news that I have, with this information that Deirdre and Eric have decided to share with the kids, and the fear that he will lose them all. And it's overwhelming. It's scarier than any horror film could ever be. So it kind of made sense, and it just seemed to kind of fall into place, that last section of the movie. It's a panic attack. It's a full-blown, it's a moment of anguish of, as he says in the movie, we don't have that kind of depression in our family. But he's not the most self-aware human being, but he does understand. I mean, he is about a lot of things, but he does understand. And that's what for me makes him really interesting, is that he really screwed up, and it's his fault. And I think that's really that's a terrifying thing to realize, that you're the cause of this.
Yeah, it is a really harrowing climax to the film. And on that note about being terrified, I just wanted to ask a question inspired by the title of the film itself. What do you find particularly frightening or scary about humans?
Um, well, I don't think of humans as frightening. I think of specific humans as frightening, but the race itself, no, I mean, the species itself, I don't. Yeah, yeah, that's a question for somebody above my pay grade. I would say, um, um, ones who can really lie well. That's a little scary.
Yeah, I spoke to Amy Schumer a week or so ago, and she said something very similar about this age of disinformation. So interesting parallel between the two of you. Okay, let's turn to Nightmare Alley, which we'll try to avoid any spoilers because the film hasn't come out wide yet. But I wanted to start by asking you about the source material for Nightmare Alley. It's based on a novel, and there's one film from the 1940s. Did you consult any of the source material when you wanted to kind of dive into the character, or did you just stick with the screenplay?
I read the book. I read the book, and then I saw the other movie, and the reason that I did was that I don't know why I did, because sometimes I don't. There's no really rhyme or reason to why I do these things. I was doing Olive Kitteridge, and I was reading the book, and Fran McDormand called me and asked me to play Henry, and I put the book down. And read the script, and I went back to the book after I finished the miniseries. So it's weird, but I wanted to see the film, and I wanted to read the book, and I did. And was it helpful? I don't know if it was or not. It's a great book, and it's a really good movie. So it was fun to do.
Agreed. I have to imagine it's such a great role and such an incredible universe that Guillermo has built. And I wanted to ask you about working again with Guillermo del Toro, who you worked with on The Shape of Water. What is it about working with him as a director, but also just inhabiting these different worlds that he, brings to life, that is so appealing to you as an actor?
Well, you're a part of something that is different and alive and singular. I mean, that's what he is. There's nobody like him. There's nothing like one of his sets to be on. You're working with a master, and he knows what he wants. He's very specific. At the same time, he's incredibly open to change and things that aren't working, and your ideas you have. I mean, he's like the whole package. He's the real deal, and he's incredible. I don't know if you've talked to him, but I mean, how interesting he is. I mean, and he's like that all the time. I mean, every 2 minutes, something you want to write it down comes out of his mouth. It's just like, oh my God, Guillermo. But and he's a sweetheart. He's an absolute sweetheart. So you put all that together, and why not, man? Why not?
Yeah, this question kind of ties into what you were saying about the source material and reading the novel. But in the screenplay, before your character is introduced, another character talks about interactions with Ezra always have consequences. So I was just wondering, when you are reading the screenplay and anticipating your entrance in the film, how does what other characters, what they say about you and their perceptions of your character influence how you embody the role?
Well, that's where the clues are, right there. And yeah, there are consequences. This guy, his whole life, has gotten what he wants. That's what he does. He gets what he wants. And I think there's no, in the beginning, he thinks this is going to happen. And if he doesn't get what he wants, it's not pretty. And yeah. I mean, he's like a lot of people, not a lot, thankfully, not a lot. You're his friend until you do something he doesn't like. You're his enemy.
Yeah, that comes across very clearly. And like I said, we're trying not to talk about any spoilers of the film. So, apologies for the vague questions. But one thing I really find so interesting.
I'd worry about.
No, that's okay. One of the questions that I wanted to ask, and what I find so fascinating about your character, again, without saying too much, is he's one of the few individuals we see on film, in the film, who are skeptical of Bradley Cooper's character, and then suddenly not. And that's something you get to play. And there's a scene of this in the trailer, so maybe we can talk a little bit about it. You know, that's a scene you get to play on camera and kind of have this evolution and transformation. So I was just wondering, you know, how much of you is finding that in the script versus just playing off of Bradley in that moment and, you know, kind of bringing it to life?
Well, I mean, there's a little bit of both. I mean, Bradley's he's an extraordinary in this film. I mean, he's just really extraordinary, and it was just so much fun working with him. He's just really an actor, and but you know, there's a, you know, he's a careful man, a really careful man, but he wants to believe this is true. And when you want something, you let other things slide. He wants it more than anything. He's dedicated his life to finding somebody who could give this to him, and he thinks he's found it with Stanley. So that's how you make mistakes, you know, when you want something too bad.
Yeah, and finally on Nightmare Alley, just wanted to ask you about the process of shooting, because so many of your scenes, including the incredible climax. So when you see the film, when it comes out, you know, look forward to the kind of climax of the film with Richard in it. You know, you're outside, it's in the snow, you're acting opposite Bradley Cooper and Rooney Mara. I mean, just incredible talent behind the screen, behind the camera and in front of the camera. What was the process of this shoot like?
Well, you're just always, it's always the same. You're trying to be a human being. You're trying to find, I mean, what is this? I mean, you know, I see her standing there, this lifelong dream. I mean, what is that? I mean, that's so interesting. And then to find out a minute later, I know we're spoilers here, that it's not real. What is that? You know, those are the things that actors love to figure out and see where they take him and what's going on here. And so that's what it's always about, you know. And you have other actors working with you that are interested in the same thing. So it was cool. It was cold, but it was cool.
Richard Jenkins, congratulations on both The Humans and Nightmare Alley, and thanks so much for talking to Gold Derby today.
Thanks, I appreciate it.